Alright, in this demo we're going to explore a lot more of the level. So this is the Reimagined NelveskaTemple from the 1997 Final Fantasy Tactics game. So this is the Dragoon. So we're sticking with Dragoon physics to allow maneuverability a lot easier. So after engaging with the Panther enemies that the player would come across first, the player could move forward along with the story or could get some exploring done. So there are a lot of treasure chests and loot throughout the level. Many have been hidden in the far corners also to really encourage the player to really explore different parts of the level and to really see what they can find. As we'll see up here, we can see the beginnings of a large monster. So a player can pull back and see that it is a Hydra that's been put to scale for the third-person action RPG. So as the player maneuvers around the level and explore some of the monster, getting some experience, they'll find some treasure chests. The more treasure chests they find, the more weapons and armor that they'll be able to help the player along. So on top of all the kinds of loot and stuff that weapons they can get that are fun, the different exploring also allows the player to see the different parts of the level. So as you can see here, as the player moves up, they can plan their next plan of attack. They want to go over to the forest that might be on to the right and see what's over there, move on with their target, or see what this Hydra might be guarding in this cave. Also from this height, I can see straight ahead that there's a chest that may have been not visible from a lower perspective. So this gives the player a chance to maneuver around the level and to really explore all three dimensions of the level. So I always love getting treasure. So I'm getting some nice armor, and then afterward they can try their hand at the Hydra. The Hydra will definitely be the hardest enemy in this entire level, which gives incentive for a player to return back to this level at a higher level, maybe to do a little grinding or just for the sake of completion. However, sometimes the Hydra will be sleeping, which will allow the player to maneuver around into this cave, getting a blue chest. There's only one blue chest on each level, and it's really big. And once the player gets a blue chest, it'll be the highest level at this time. So this can really help shape the character class that the player may be choosing. If they get a spear, they may continue with the Dragoon class to really help them. If they get a new bow, then this would be the perfect spot to switch to the Archer class. Can attack thieves from here without really hitting damage to yourself. So if the player moves on forward, the player has many paths they can choose. They can go over here and move forward with the next objective later, or they can continue to keep exploring. So there's much of the level has different terrain. This is a higher, more rocky part. So Panther enemies and the new introduction of the Goblin. Goblins are much smarter and try to move around the opponent. Oh, it's going to get another treasure. So afterward, the player can get a lot of experience this way. Also can explore different terrains and try out how different classes move around the level. So as you can see from the ominous fog, and down below we have some grave sites. So as any RPG player will know, when grave sites are about, then there are the undead. So this would be the most difficult spot for the player to engage in. There's skeleton warriors, there are ghosts, and many of these graves will spawn the enemies. So this place can quickly become overrun for the player. This fog kind of traps them in. So there are a lot of treasure chests for the player to explore if they can maneuver fast enough or are higher level. So some treasure chests, like this one, you may not see from every angle, but the more you explore, the more you will discover. So there are treasure chests in every part. But if the player gets too greedy, all these skeleton warriors could come on them, so they may have to get out of there quite quickly, so they can just maneuver about. I used a material editor and used the material on this landscape to show the different transformations of different heights. So using the foliage editor, I put different plants that are appropriate. The different foliage represents a lot of Norwegian plants that are found in Upper Europe. So they help kind of describe this land, this level. So you get the feeling of a much colder, more Norse environment. So we get a nice waterfall. So even though there is undead to be seen, it still is a very beautiful landscape. So there is a lot to explore, and the player can have a real duality of what they can enjoy. So then we get a river to overcome. If the player decides they don't want to engage in the upper level that might seem fearful at first, then they can keep going around seeing what they can find. We will come to the lake element. So you can see a lot of fish enemies are about. So fish enemies can gang up on you, but won't be as strong as the skeleton warriors. Many of them... So a player can move up and down. So you can move up and out of the lake. So you can see it has a very cold environment. So players will see that there are a lot of fish in the center, which gives the incentive for the player to keep exploring and move around the level. So they'll get a good feel for the level and also just be able to engage the enemies a little bit more on their own terms. So you can get some of these fish just over here in the combat. So going up and down the lake. So after you do some fish enemies and got some experience, you may want to come over here to the forest area and see what that has to offer. So it is a little slower in there, which gives the fish a little bit of an advantage. So the player will have to be careful a little bit how they approach that. So here in the forest there are some goblins. So they're in two different areas. Just goblins in this area. So each area feels a little bit different for combat, and some treasure chests. So it might help with anti-poison or other status effects. Maneuvering around the trees and giving a different environment. So again, treasure chests in every corner. So this is the forest, and that was the lake. So as you can see, that the overall landscape is still very beautiful despite some of the monster and sort of the hardships the journey will unfold in the story. So this has been the NelveskaTemple. Thank you.